the discourse around kink at Pride is not new, but sadly, as the internet culture has allowed everyone to hyperbolically put their 2 cents, even when it is potentially harmful, has grown, I decided I was going to throw my 2 cents into the ring. So, when it comes to this conversation, the rationale I see is split into these discussions of making Pride a family friendly affair. And the points I've seen going about are like, what about queer kids? How about LGBTQ plus families? Shouldn't it be child friendly for them? And then the fact that it is an open event means it should be PG-13. I'm going to go in reverse order of these points. So the first thing, and maybe it's just my experience as like a New Yorker, but unless a parade is like political, religious, or has some sort of child affiliated purpose to it, I do not assume it's child friendly. And by children, for the record, I mean 13 and below. I think by 13, especially today, you as a guardian or a parent should be fostering a relationship with your child to give them a healthy way of discussing sex and sexuality. Uh, and I think about things like Carnival or the Labor Day parade or even like growing up like the Puerto Rican Day parade. Like, yes, you bring families, but it's also a big party with people you don't know are there. So I was always aware that like shit can go off, you know? Like my parents brought me to like the African parade off Eastern Parkway when I was growing up. But they were very much taking me to like the children's portions of the events. It was never like just go free for all. So it's very strange to me that people are like, oh, it should just be for everyone. And it's like, you like I think about something like Comic-Con. There at Comic-Con there are events that have children's there, but there are also cosplayers and outfits that can be viewed as sexual. It's like you as a parent are taking your child to an event where there are people you don't know, and that means being prepared to talk to them about things or just be like, oh, you didn't see that, blah blah blah. Like I find the whole children thing bugs me, especially because when we every time like the trans bathroom bills comes up, people who are transphobic are like, how am I gonna explain that to my kids? When gay people were kissing before, like back when gay marriage wasn't as popular, people were like, how am I gonna explain that to my kids? Now in an open space now in an open space, queer people are telling other gay people to prioritize these imaginary children, And especially considering that, especially in the context of New York City Pride, where it's paying tribute, especially to the Stonewall riots, the Stonewall Inn wasn't some posh gay bar. You're like, firstly, it was run by the mafia, and it catered to like patrons who were like the most poor and marginalized people in the community: butch lesbians, effeminate young gay men, drag queens, male prostitutes, transgender people, homeless queer youth, people who were not seen as family friendly, people who even among the gay community at that time were not seen as the right kind of gay for sort of the political aspects of what that meant. When it comes to the aspect of kink, there is a huge leather subculture that is part of gay pride. Like the leather pride flag was created by a gay man named Tolly DeBlaze or de Blase, I don't know. It's French. You know how I feel about French stuff. In like 1989, there's the Lesbian Motorcycle Club, Dykes on Bikes, which has been a huge part of Pride, and leather biking has a huge place in lesbian culture anyway. So like, why are we in a place to celebrate Pride in our history trying to censor parts of that history? I saw someone say that like they don't feel represented by like the hypersexuality at Pride, and it's like, okay, like I as a black gay woman don't feel represented every time I see a black sitcom that is like very Christian and very heteronormative. But I don't say it has no place in black pride. I don't say that because it makes me uncomfortable or it's not my experience, it doesn't have a place there. Like that is part of black culture. That is part of the black experience. It may not be my part in it, but I'm not going to say it doesn't have a place in the culture. So it's weird to me to see like this argument being taken as like, oh, because I don't experience this thing, it means it should not be there. Like, and it's truly disgusting to see people, especially self-identified LGBTQ people, say that it is pedophilia to want to have people celebrate kink at Pride. It's like, how are two adults consenting to celebrate a part of LGBTQ subculture in a public celebration pedophilia? Like, because children might be there. Like, that's like saying that anytime two kids are in a room during a sex scene, that two adults are watching, they're pedophiles. It's like, it's just very right-wing respectability politics at its finest. And I really appreciated Julia Serrano's point about how people are taking the term consent and using it to mean things that are just so far beyond the intent of that language. Because people are saying like, well, I didn't consent to your kink. It's like, you're not taking part in it. It's a parade. It would be one thing if we were talking about a non-pride, non-public space where this is part of the subculture and just taking place outside. Like, that's just not a good look, you know? Like, it's weird to have people actively do any kind of kink or hypersexual experience in public without any context. But this is a pride parade. Like, kink is a part of pride. Like, it is not something that is unfounded. So like, that to me is just like beyond. And then finally, the thing about like LGBTQ kids, like, shouldn't they be allowed to celebrate at Pride? Well, when I Googled youth events at Pride, I found a whole list of events. Like, funny how a quick Google search just proves that this is not an issue. And, you know, also if we're talking about like gay pride events for kids, they exist outside of just the pride parade. If your child's interested in LGBTQ education or is a member of the community themselves, you should be finding local events for them. And if they don't exist, make them, you know, especially when we're talking about major cities. We're not talking about like places where there aren't big hubs of queerness. Like, we're talking about San Francisco, LA, New York City. Like, these are places that have gay communities, you know, like. And also, Pride is very corporate and boring anyway. There are amazing books and places to take your kids that would be more informative and age appropriate if you're concerned about that. Like, no one is advocating for people to have sex at Pride. After all, you know, that's illegal. You can't have sex in the public space, period. So like, if anyone did that, that would be illegal. But Pride is about celebrating a large community filled with subcultures that have already been marginalized and looked down on, even from within the community. The reality is that, you know, there are going to be annoying allies at Pride. There's going to be capitalism at Pride. There's going to be transphobic and gatekeeping people at Pride. Kink is not the biggest problem that Pride has in terms of being an ostracizing place. So it's very, very, very bizarre to me that people are using these very inflammatory right-wing arguments to sort of make a space to say like, it's okay for me to ostracize and mistreat an entire group of our community this way. And again, it's very weird. It's very weird to be seeing people throw pedophilia around, talking about gay people when like that not what we dealt with 30, 40, 50 years ago? And now we're doing it to ostracize consensual people doing kinky things at an event where kink is a part of it. And I see people saying like, well, you know, BDSM culture isn't and kink isn't just a gay thing. I'm like, okay, and like, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Like, we duh is not just a gay thing, but there are rich histories of that being a part of gay subculture. Like, leather daddy stuff is a part of gay stereotyping and culture. Like, are we really gonna sit here and pretend like it's absurd? Like, and people keep on bringing stuff like puppy play and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, the amount of puppy play you're probably gonna see is like someone wearing like a mask and a leash. They're not gonna be engaging in like hardcore of those behaviors outside. And every time I've gone to Pride, which is like 3 times, because honestly it is boring and very corporate, I have seen like half naked twinks everywhere. Like, enough with this weird purity policing. Like, a parade is a parade. Like, you look at Carnival, titties everywhere, girl. Okay, like titties as all the time, and the children, they fine. Like, you, like, it's a party, it's a parade. If you feel uncomfortable with your kid being in that environment, then don't take them. Find another environment. Find the events that are good to you. Like, it's slightly inconvenient to you. Well, guess what? Sometimes that's what being a parent is like, having to navigate those things. I mean, that's why you have to find babysitters if you go on a trip. That's why you have to make sure you do something about education. Like, you have a child. That's your commitment. I have space and empathy for people who want to be able to have their children celebrate Pride, who want to celebrate Pride with their children. Absolutely. I think that that's a beautiful thing, and I think it's great that kids can celebrate Pride so openly and so freely. Love that. But an open parade, especially if it's not specifically for children, is not a free-for-all for children. You have to make the conscious decision. There is nothing about pride as it is a historical, like a protest that we have now turned into a celebration that indicates that a celebration about the most vulnerable people in our queer community, sex workers, trans folk, homeless youth, who are not helped by this entire pride parade anyway, that we are now going to make gatekeeping for people within those subcultures who were a part of this community before, like butch lesbians and leather culture. Hello, like, you know, it boggles the mind. Okay, like, these conservative gays be doing the most. Even if you think that kink doesn't belong at pride, you have the right to think that. But throwing in pedophilia is just like, to me, that instantly turns you into a bad actor, in my opinion. Because as soon as you start using these homophobic dog whistles to attack consenting adult gay people about doing something that is about their relationship, I'm like, well, you're just using that word to shut down the conversation. You have nothing to add to it. So you're saying these hyper polarizing things. It's gross. It's not constructive. And I really, really wish people would just learn to communicate their disapproval, their discomfort in a way that wasn't turning adults into sexual criminals. And again, if you are a queer person, it's like, so you are comfortable labeling another queer person a pedophile the same way homophobic people do all the time. Think about that.